To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. The one who had received the 5 talents went off at once and traded with them, and made 5 more talents. In the same way, the one who had the 2 talents made 2 more talents. But the one who had received the 1 talent went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. Then the one who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more talents, saying, Master, you handed over to me 5 talents. See, I have made 5 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy servant. You have been trustworthy in a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. And the one with the 2 talents also came forward, saying, Master, you handed over to me 2 talents. See, I have made 2 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy servant. You have been trustworthy in a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Then the one who had received the 1 talent also came forward, saying, Master, I knew that you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. So here, have what is yours. But his master replied, You wicked and lazy slave, you knew, did you, that I reap where I did not sow and gather where I did not scatter? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him, and give it to the one with 10 talents. For to all those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even when they have, will be taken away. As for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So Tom got a decent break as a guitar player. He had his high school group of friends, a couple of guys who were jamming and doing gigs, maybe playing some school dances and stuff. And so he got into playing with the guitar. He was never going to be an Eric Clapton or a Page or anybody like that, but he was enjoying himself. He did pretty well. I mean, he could even make money on his gigs. But his dad always told him that he needs to concentrate on something a little more realistic, a little more productive, because there's so few that really make it as a guitar player. So maybe he should study, I don't know, accounting or engineering or, something practical. And so he took his dad's advice, although he became rather bitter about it. He always wanted to play that guitar, and he was always convinced that he could make money playing his guitar, because he did pretty well, and he knew it. But he let that nagging voice get into his head, and so he kind of gave up on the jam sessions. He decided, you know what, the old man's right. I'm never going to be anybody that great at guitar, so I need to focus on realistic things. And so he put his Gibson away, zipped up the case, went off to college, studied accounting, did okay for himself. But he always had this mindset that working for the man wasn't really all it's cracked up to be, because, see, the man will always be focused on what's better for him, or the woman, right? The boss is always out there trying to do for his or herself, and really doesn't care about the subordinates. I mean, everybody knows that. It's perfectly clear. All of these people are just kind of like drones or ants running around working for the big dude, and just kind of wandering aimlessly, being used as fat cats keep getting fatter or richer. And so when his boss would go away on trips, he'd kind of just mess around, lay easy. He still worked. He gave 90%. He never gave 110%, because why should he bother? In the end, he was just going to end up getting screwed anyway. So he cruised along, always carried with him this air of suspicion. And of course, his boss noticed. Because see, that's how the corporate system is set up, right? The people up here get great bonuses based on profit margins, and it's the people down here who produce those margins. So anybody who can understand basic math or basic economics understands that the system is just never going to work in these people's favor. It's always going to be good for the people on top. And so the boss, of course, knowing this, and of course this is what the boss was doing, intentionally watching Tom slave away, but not really working nearly as hard as he should be, eventually started confronting Tom, telling Tom that he needed to pick it up a little bit, put in a little bit more effort. There were a few mistakes in his numbers, some things that were starting to cost the company some money, which of course meant it was coming out of the boss's pocket too. Well, after talking to Tom 3 or 4 times, and Tom just kept doing the same old stuff, his boss had no choice. It was written up in policy with HR. After you get 3 warnings, you got to go. As much as he liked Tom, he had to let Tom go. And of course, Tom goes away sulking and angry and mad, having no desire to find another job because just like he knew, those bosses were out to help themselves. And look, proof. Because that boss let him go. Because there wasn't enough money going into the boss's pocket. See, I told you, he said. People are only out to help themselves. This is kind of a modern-day version of what we see right here. Because we all know that since every man or woman is for his or herself and doing what benefits themselves, that there's no way for us to get ahead in this rat race of life. And the man who got the 1 talent knew it. See, Jesus is telling this parable, and the man is already set up from the beginning. Right? He's already up against the wall. He gets 1 talent. Right? One guy gets 5, another guy gets 2. He only gets 1. So in the beginning, as Jesus is telling the story, the odds are already against him. Of course, he's being set up to fail. And then he fails. And then he gets cast into the outer darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. But there's something that we keep forgetting about parables. Parables are stories. Parables are there to teach. They're not historical events. Jesus wasn't trying to say about an actual man who received 1 talent from his boss. He was telling a story. And so we have to ask ourselves, what was his point? What was he trying to get out of this? What was he trying to relay to those doubting Pharisees, or even to his own disciples who didn't quite understand what his message was? I think Jesus pulled a reversal that we fail to see to this day. See, it says that Jesus, or that the master gave to each according to his ability. And so we think, okay, well, the man who got 5 talents must have more ability because he was entrusted with more. But what if, just what if, that's not what Jesus was saying? What if Jesus was saying that the man who got 1 talent only needed 1 because he had the ability to produce? He didn't need any outside help. He had the ability. He had the talent already. He only needed 1 talent. And his boss trusted that he could take that and produce even more than the one who got 5, the one who got the really big head start, because naturally he didn't have as much talent. He needed a little bit of external help, we'll say. And so when the boss comes back, he's very disappointed because he knew. He knew that man with the 1 talent could have done so much better. He knew he could have earned 20 talents and put the man with 5 who turned him into 10 to shame. But he didn't do it. Instead, when his master came back, he says, I knew you were a stingy and wicked man who only did things for your own benefit. This stingy, grumpy person who wouldn't help other people, but would only see that you get the good end of the deal. And I know you take what's not yours. I know you reap what you don't sow. And see, here we are. I put that money away because I knew you would be ticked if I lost it. And sure enough, no matter what I do, you get mad anyway. Can't win. See, told you. Jesus was teaching about perception. Jesus was teaching about attitude. That man created a self-fulfilling prophecy because he said, there's no way that I can win. There's no way that I can do well. And you know what? He was right. It's like the old saying goes, if you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're right. And so it was with this man. And so it was that Jesus was trying to teach his disciples that some of you have natural abilities and talents that have been bestowed upon you, and you don't need the head start that other people need. But by God, you got to use them. You got to put them to use. How did these guys make their money? They traded. Well, what is trading? It's sharing. It's sharing. And so we ask ourselves, well, what do I have to share? What is it that I need to do so that I can have a quote-unquote good and fulfilling life, but in the process, I'm helping others? How do I use my talents, marry them with my skills for the benefit of the greater good? I heard a quote recently that said, if you're wondering what you should be doing now, think about what you'll be lamenting tomorrow that you didn't do. What is it tomorrow that we'll be sitting there saying, I wish I would have done this. I so could have accomplished that. I could have done that, but I gave up before I even got started. What is that? Whatever that is where we need to go back to. We recently went to see a movie called Interstellar. Matthew McConaughey and this man, Michael Caine, playing the part of this professor who realizes that the earth is dying and that people need to escape the earth. And they need to go find another planet that they can inhabit. And it's all this stuff about wormholes out by Saturn, these others, presumably aliens had put out there. Right? And so Matthew McConaughey leaves his family because, of course, he's the only one who could pilot the shuttle out to the wormhole. And, the only one. And so he does so, but with the whole twins paradox thing, if you've heard of that, right, where time near a black hole, where the speed of light is actually bent and changed, time passes at a different rate of speed than regular time. And so Matthew McConaughey, even though he seems like he's only gone for about 2 years, everybody else ages about 50 years. And realizes that the professor who sent him out there never had any hope that they would come back. See, he left on the hope that he could come back and go as quickly as he could and get back before his kids had aged too much. And he could come back and be reunited with them. But he realizes on the mission that he had the wool pulled over his eyes, because in his dying moments, the professor admits that he knew they would never come back. The funny thing is, you get to the point when you think that there's no way to make anything out of what you've got because the odds were already against you. The person who created the program already knew that there was no way to succeed. McConaughey's daughter kept seeing these ghosts that would communicate. This one ghost would communicate by drawing binary patterns in the dust in this dying earth. And she would read those and get messages from them. She thought it was her ghost, but you know what? It ended up being Matthew McConaughey, who, when he goes through this wormhole, goes into this weird parallel universe where time is a part of linked with height, right? So it's all 4-dimensional and 5-dimensional. Time is a tangible aspect. And so he sees all these boom, 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 all these possibilities of the same event, one after the other, one after the other. Same point in time. When his daughter was young and seeing these books coming off the shelves, and they were left in patterns, 1, 2, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, all these binary patterns. He was sitting there telling his daughter, make me not go, don't let me go, don't let me go, because the odds are against us. I'm never coming back. So at that point, when he's in his daughter's room telling her, I have to leave, and she's upset with him, he's telling her back at this point in time, convince me not to go. But then it occurs to him. Then it occurs to him that all of these possibilities in time are all lined up next to each other. And had he not gone, he wouldn't have been able to go and become his daughter's ghost and relay messages to her from a time where understanding is much greater than at that point in time. I say all this to say that even when the odds are stacked against you, even when it seems that there is no way that this is going to turn out good, you never know. You never know. Because yes, God gives us talents, and skills, and ability. But the X factor is always there. And that's God's help. It's always there. It's there for the taking when we need it and when we want it. There was a poem in this movie that Michael Caine kept reciting. It said, do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight and learned too late they grieve it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my Father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. When it seems like there's no end in sight. When it seems like it can't turn out okay. And then in the end, no matter what, you're always going to get the short end of the stick. Rage, rage against the dying of the light, because you don't know how it's going to turn out after all. Because the help is always there.